Leonard Bernstein on screen, I think may have gone even further back as far as your love affair with him as both a composer and also as a person. So I'd love for you to talk about your journey with the man that eventually led you to the screen.
Well, first of all, thanks for being here. This is cool. The one thing I just want to say about the Venice Film Festival, because of the strike, we weren't there, but people were sending videos, and I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I don't know if you saw it, but the children were conducting at the end, and the Bernstein family was there, and they stood up and conducted during the credits, and that was just one of the most unbelievable things to watch for us, to see them so happy and joyous for the film that we all made. That was really, I have to say, that was like better than being there. And then in terms of the origin really, I did not know about Leonard Bernstein. I have an absolute obsession with fake conducting when I was a kid. But I was obsessed with it, like oddly obsessed with it, and spent hundreds of hours conducting. So I always felt this sort of this calling, quite honestly. And then when there was a project about a conductor, I really fell in love, and always had never given myself permission to dream that big, but writing and directing films. And I asked Steven Spielberg, who was in control of the property at the time, if I could maybe take that on. And that's how it began. And then I started to research to try to figure out what's the script that I could write, what's the story that I felt that I could tell. And it was these two wonderful characters, Felicia and Lenny, and their relationship, and then the nuclear power. Because if you have nuclear power, you have a shot of making something special. And like with The Star Is Born, it was Gaga's voice. I was like, it's for me to fuck up that movie, because her voice and like singing those songs. And for this, it was Leonard Bernstein's music. And I thought if I can make a movie that's one musical element, it's his music. That's why you see him at the end. That we can maybe make something special. But the only reason was because Carey Mulligan decided to say yes.
I was delighted to have one hat. I always have one hat, and I will forever have a hat. But yeah, I think, it's so funny that you say at the very least he was tired. I couldn't tell you a day I saw him be tired. I mean, and he must have been, because he was getting to work at 2 a.m. To be there to do the prosthetics and fully become Lenny 5 hours before anyone else got there. But I didn't see tired, ever. I just saw, it was Sarah Silverman was talking about this last night, the joy in the way that Bradley made the film every day, just so delighted to be doing it and to be making it and to be able to tell the story, and that was so infectious. So that part of it was only ever energizing to be around him. And what I'm finding so interesting now is doing press, because there's so much of it that was just, all the work was done before, so that by the time we got to set, I didn't ever sit through a thought process. I could see him thinking. He'd close his eyes for a long time, sometimes. And I'd sort of, it's funny, there's these pictures of us on set that our still photographer took, where Bradley's like standing on stage and he's doing this, and he's got his head down, he's got his arm crossed, and I'm standing right next to him just doing that. And I'm like, do you remember that? And there's another one where you've got your hands on your hips, you're looking at the floor, and I'm facing the other way with my hands on the hips looking at the floor. And I would just sort of stay near him and just be proximate, and then the next thing would come out. So I wasn't seeing like someone, the amount of effort that was going into it, I'm sure, was enormous, but I didn't see someone being effortful. It was just, he would just sort of take a second and then would know exactly what the next thing to do was. And in terms of being directed by your co-star, I mean, first of all, you've got an incredible actor to try and meet, but then that he could also direct me through his own performance, I think was the best. I mean, it was just so much fun, because he could elicit the response in me that he knew he would get from my portrayal of the character through the way that he played Lenny, and that was a lot of the way that he worked with me was just through his own performance, which I think was just, because he could be so instinctive with Lenny, because he'd done so much to become him.
Speaking of sort of...
So what she's doing is watching me sort of, well, if I change it, how does that affect everything else I have to shoot? And I sort of play the movie out in my head. So thank you for your patience of me just, it almost looks like it was probably like some sort of weird like horror movie, because it was true, because I'm also Lenny talking, right? So it's Lenny going like, I think we're gonna do this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I think we're gonna, that would happen all all day long.
And then everyone around would just.
And sometimes it would be mid-conversation.
Yeah. I know.
I feel like I know.
You really have to make sure you put a good.
I was like, oh, she is Jamie. I mean, she has this melody, that the way she speaks, and she's so just sort of powerful. And I believe that is the child of the both of them. And Sam Nivola, who plays Alex, I knew since he was 10 years old. He's Alessandro Nivola's son, and Emily Mortimer, and we did The Elephant Man. So I've known him since he was a kid. Nina auditioned, she's an incredible actress. And then it was just, Aaron Copland is my best friend since I'm 10 years old, Brian Klugman, because they were best friends, Lenny and Aaron. And I thought, well, we don't have to act. I just try to do anything I can not to act. That's actually my doctor. That's Bernard Kruger, was my doctor for years. He was cast shortly after Felicia, like 4.5 years ago. I was like, Bernard, there's going to be a scene where you play a doctor. And actually, so anytime I can do that, Kevin Thompson, the incredible production designer, is the director of when they're doing Facade, when she's doing that television piece.
Says hold the
Just a little bit, it's gonna bounce. It's Kevin Thompson, maybe you should start acting. Anytime I can do that. Actually, the first day of shooting, the first scene that we shot was the scene where older Lenny teaches William conducting. And it was such a terrifying day, just because it was the first time I was really being Lenny in front of a crew and having to direct. And I asked one of my best friends, Gabe Fazio, who I went to grad school with. I knew that I had an anchor there. He played Lenny's assistant who arrives in the Jaguar. And just knowing Gabe was there, I thought I was going to be okay. And he was so kind enough to play that role.
I will say, Carey, that you got to execute, what would it be? Because I'm sure there was many.
I mean, the truth is there was one that I really didn't have fear at all any day, namely because Carey was with me. But the Ely Cathedral scene where he's conducting was terrifying.
I kind of hoped it was that one.
I mean, it was, and really terrifying, because you know when some people say, like, it's okay if you mess, it's like, it's gonna be okay. It's like, no, actually, if I mess that up, the whole movie doesn't work. Because you're going like, he's not a good conductor. What is everybody talking about? Why is she staying with I don't see him standing in the center of the sun. And like, and because we did it a lot, that's me conducting the London Symphony Orchestra, and that's 6 minutes and 21 or 23 seconds of music that luckily I had Gustavo Dudamel and Yannick Seguin, who were kind enough for years to teach me it, and I had the video of him conducting that orchestra in the 70s in that space. But even with all that, conducting is impossible. And so the first day I messed up. I kept getting behind tempo. I was forgetting where the time change happened, and it was that moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm messing it up in front of the greatest in the world. I mean, London Symphony Orchestra, top 3 orchestras in the world. And then the minute you think that people aren't believing you, and then, by the way, I'm also Lenny, so like, well, then they don't think I'm Lenny. And it all starts, that feeling when it was horrible. I went to bed, texted Steve Morrow, the sound mixer, do we have it? And you're texting the sound mixer, and you're the director. If we have the scene, you're in trouble. And he wrote back like, I think we have it, and I knew we didn't. And because I had the luxury of being so early to set the next day, it was an empty cathedral. I walked in, and I knew I was actually shooting it improperly. I was shooting it out of fear. I had so many setups, which the movie doesn't have, out of fear that I was going to mess it up. But the truth is, the scene was only about Felicia coming to see him and seeing that there is no hate in his heart. And that's what the scene's about. So I was like, he's got to conduct it. So everybody waited, and I brought in the techno crane, and I created this one shot. I asked everybody back in. I actually said a prayer in front of everybody to Lenny, thanking him, actually, not asking for anything, thanking them, and we did it one more time, and that's what's in the movie, and I did conduct them. And it was great. It was great. And actually,
from Leonard and Felicia's children, to what traits or what stories from them really sat with you the most to become that character?
Gosh, I mean, the first time I Zoomed with them, because it was COVID the first time. We met in 2019 in Philadelphia when we
they came to Candide.
They came to Candide, and that felt like sort of the blessing of, playing their mother, which was such an honor. And then I Zoomed with them.
Turn to me after, they're like, she's perfect. I was like, oh, thank God, okay.
And then, so we Zoomed, and I remember the first time I sat down with my notebook and I was sort of ready to take notes, and then they started talking, and it was like the three boxes, and they were all just like, it was like Zoom kept on cutting out because they kept on overlapping every time. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to take notes. I'm just going to absorb all of this. I think the sense of fun of their family, and that everything was a game and everything was an inside joke, and that it was sort of them against everyone else. Like there was a sense of like they had their secret languages, they had their inside jokes, they had their traditions, they had this way of being really kind of lovingly mocking of one another, and like. It was just a family you wanted to be in, more than anything. So much love, and they just adored their parents. And obviously, the more we learned about them, the more we adored them and wanted to. And then I went to Chile and to Santiago to meet her extended family. So her nephew kindly gave me a sort of tour for 3 days, and I met lots and lots of extended family. A huge family. But also was lucky enough to meet her brother-in-law, who was in Italy with them the summer that The Private World of Leonard Bernstein was written. So was there when they were doing all these interviews, which we also had access to, these incredible recordings. And went to one of her family homes and saw her paintings, and so I felt like just so much kind of blessing from the whole family. But I think it was that sense that I wanted to be in it. I listened to those recordings and I thought, I want to be at that dinner table, and it sounds like the most fabulous place to be. And then luckily they did. They made us feel like family. They really did.